Now, how could I tell that Alan is a criminal just by looking at him?
20 tiny fingers.
Yes. A merry criminal, yeah.
Is it the shifty little eyes, pointy nose and general sort of little pug face?
Interesting. Totally unfair reading.
Never seen you happier. Never been happier. Happiest I've ever seen you.
That one's been building up for over 20 years.
Not letting this one out on telly.
Out of that bottle.
One day I'm really going to tell you what I think of it. When will that opportunity arrive? Oh, go on.
Is this like the phrenology?
Well, this, in fact, I have a
I've got a
phrenological
head.
Everyone has one of these.
Everyone has one of these.
Stupid
This is a
heads.
copy of the original.
In the Melbourne jail, they've got casts of Ned Kelly and all the murderers.
Absolutely, because in the 19th century, not only phrenology, but of the face, physiognomy, the art of reading character through the face was taken terribly seriously.
Is it his ears? Something to do with his ears?
Nose.
Well, I'll tell you, the father of physiognomy was, of course, one of Alan's best friends, Aristotle. According to what he said about the face and character, your curly hair signifies someone who is dull of apprehension, soon angry and given to lying and mischief.
Cool, you thought Joe was bad?
Yeah. The distance between your eyebrows, as worked out by the QI elves, is that you are hard-hearted, envious, close and cunning, addicted to cruelty more than love. Oh. Dara.
Yes?
He who has a large, full forehead and a little round withal, destitute of hair, or at least that has little on it, is bold, malicious, high-spirited, full of choler, apt to transgress beyond bounds, and yet of good wit and very apprehensive. There you are.
You threw me a little bun there at the end, didn't you?
Yes.
It was like, you are a scumbag, 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 couple of gags, scumbag, scumbag, essentially.
Exactly, basically. Whereas Phil, he whose hair groweth thick on his temples and his brow is by nature simple, vain, luxurious, lustful, credulous, clownish in his speech and conversation, and double chin shows a peaceable disposition, but
Think on.
vain, credulous, a great supplanter and secret in all your actions.
And not to mention peckish.
Yeah.
Well, there is that.
Joe, one whose hair is of reddish complexion, is for the most part, if
But
not
it's
always,
hair dye.
proud, deceitful, detracting, venerous and full of envy.
Venerous.
Yes, as in venereal, sort of...
Disease.
Yes, to do with... Sorry, is it just this atmosphere? Are you thirsty? I could do with it... Can we have a drink? Thank you. I've got a friend here who's going to bring me a drink.
It's not like Yo Sushi, is it?
No, no. Here we are.
This is for you.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Welcome to QI, Asimo.
Thank you, Stephen. It is great to be here.
Isn't he marvellous?
Here I am, brain the size of a planet. Opening doors.
So you're the most advanced humanoid robot on the planet, is that right?
That is what they tell me.
Why don't you show us what you can do?
I would love to.
Is he going to kill me?
Honestly, I promise you, you are going to be impressed. I mean, this is... but what, it's this movement that is so simple to us. You know, they can do calculations we could never dream of doing, any computer, but this movement he's doing, he's going to go down a step, right? Give him time.
If he falls over, that's 20 million quid up the swanny.
Now he's going to do something that I think no one in this room will have ever seen, which is, I think, truly miraculous.
Studio audience killed by runaway robot.
No, he is going to run. I'd like you to run, Asimo, and this takes him a bit of time, but both feet will leave the ground, and he will run. Very good.
Oh!
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that incredible? Well done. Well done, Asimo. I think it's only fair that you get some points.
Thanks, but what I would really like is a dance with Joe.
I think that can be arranged.
He wouldn't say that if he'd met me.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Asimo. I'm married, sorry.
Well done, everybody.
Oh, he's bowing.
Amazing.
I
Thank
scored.
you. Thank you very much, Asimo. Goodbye, then.
What's the battery life on one of these?
Take my onions off.
You can take your onions off.
And that's slightly restricting Montet.
Yeah. Then, of course you must. It's matet, it's feminine, -5.
I said mon because I'm masculine.
It doesn't quite work that way, I'm
Doesn't it?
afraid, no. For example, the word vagina is masculine, whichever sex you are, and you're likely to be female if you have one.
But you would say mon vagina.
You, as it were, yes, you would.
That makes it sound like a mountain somewhere, doesn't it? It's not. Is it?
Yes.
Oh, I
Funny
must
looking
climb
mountain.
on vagina.
Many have. Many have fallen off.
Bon, allons-y, mes copains. Alors, à ce moment-ci, je vous donne des bonus points si vous pouvez répondre en français. OK? Yeah?
Oui.
Very good. Already, bonus points for you.
Rien de rien.
Non.
Plus tard, nous verrons. Phil, comment ça va?
That was French.
That is fluent. Joe, voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir?
Pardon me. Not asked.
Excellent. 4 points. Anna, donne-moi un mot, s'il vous plaît. Un mot pour un mammifère marin qui ne peut avaler aucun plus grand qu'un pamplemousse.
Pamplemousse. What's a pamplemousse? Ask the audience, ask the audience.
I think
What's a pamplemousse?
it's French porn.
Grapefruit.
Grapefruit. Do I?
See, Anna, for the last 6 years, you have yearned for the answer to a question to be, and it never has been.
The blue whale.
And that is the answer! Oh. I asked you, in my broken French, to name a marine mammal that couldn't swallow anything bigger than a grapefruit.
Right.
And that is a blue whale. Yeah. Oh, you could have had such pleasure and
Yeah.
joy. Never mind. What does a robot jockey do?
Ah, yeah, these robot jockeys ride camels, don't they?
You are good, and you've already got the points.
Yeah, the robot jockeys, they're a form of racing in Dubai, in particular, and perhaps across
In the
whole
UAE, generally.
They have camel racing, and the camels, I think at that speed probably couldn't take human weight on them. They have to be quite small. So I am presuming that at some stage they experimented with either little people or with children.
Children.
Yeah.
It was reintroduced by King Fahd of Saudi Arabia in the 1970s, and children were indeed taken from their parents and were forced to be the jockeys on these camels.
What do you mean taken from their parents? People would just turn up at a random house?
I'm afraid, as you probably know, much of the service industries are performed by Sri Lankans and Indians. The Gulf Arab people themselves don't do much of the basic work, and it was Indian children who were taken to be jockeys. It was not a pleasant story, and there's no way of dressing it up nicely.
And I mean, how much control do they have over the camels exactly?
Well, they've got reins, and they also have GPS, so they know where they are. Now, you may say, why they put a face and a hat and costume on it. The fact is, the camels were spooked out when the robots just looked like machines. The camels were much more relaxed at the idea that it was a human on them, because they've sort of grown used to the idea.
Right.
So these only weigh a few kilos. They're not that expensive, about $500 each. They whip the camels by remote control, because the managers are following in a truck. So they do whip, I'm afraid. They're far lighter than the child jockeys, and I suppose it's less inhumane. They were designed in Switzerland.
Please, may I tell you the only camel joke that I know?
Please.
OK. There's two guys in the army out in the desert, and there's a new recruit, and there are no women around at all, and the new recruit says, what do we do for sex? And the old guy says, I'm afraid it's the camels. And so that evening, they're all let out towards the camels, and the old bloke's running really fast, and the young guy says, what are you doing? It's only a camel. And he goes, yeah, but you don't want to get an ugly one, do you?
So what are those camels we're looking at? What sort of camels are they?
I'm sorry. There is another camel joke. Sorry. Which is same starting point. Initially taken for the first couple of bits and said, oh, I'm afraid there are no women here. I'm afraid it's the camels. So late at night, the guy declares, I can't take it anymore. I'm as horny as hell. And he goes out and he rides the camel. And he comes back in and goes, well, that's the best we can do. And the man says, well, actually, when I said we've got the camels, we normally ride them into town.
Anybody else got any camel jokes? No. Excellent, excellent. What does Pliny confidently expect to cure by recommending that the patient eats the heart of a black jackass outside, out of doors that is, on the second day of the moon?
Mumps. Excellent, I have no idea. So, there was a suggestion once that the key to eternal life lies in the elbow, and if it can be consumed, then you would live forever, which is why nobody, no matter how hard you try, can actually lick their own elbows. Even though...
Clearly, we must all
I know the audience are now desperate to have a go, but it's so attainable until you come to here, and whether the theory came first or the curse came second... The idea that you cannot lick your elbow, but they say if you can, you will live forever.
But isn't that how socialism was invented, that someone said, come, let us lick each other's elbows?
It doesn't look good.
Well, the thing is that no young man of licking age spent any time at all trying to lick his elbow.
The question was, why would you eat the heart of a black jackass by the light of the moon?
Well, it must be something awfully serious
Outdoors.
you'd have wrong with you. Because the heart of a... Now, where do you get a black jackass, anyway?
These days.
These days?
Yeah.
Kentucky Fried Jackass.
Well, I'll tell you the answer.
Is it gout?
It's not gout. It's not gout. It's actually epilepsy. Although he also prescribes for epilepsy the consumption of lightly poached bear's testes, a camel's brain, dried and taken with honey, or in extremis, a draught of fresh gladiator's blood.
He doesn't mention Tegretol, then?
No. Is that the specific that you favour?
Yes, it is. That's a specific drug for epilepsy.
Do you have epilepsy yourself?
No.
No, but you know those who do.
She knows loads about drugs.
Does she?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's a nurse.
And a drug
Of course
addict.
she would. Anyway, in the words of Jack Handy, to me, clowns aren't funny. In fact, they're kind of scary, he said. I've wondered where this started, and I think it goes back to the time I went to the circus and a clown killed my father. The fear of clowns is called coulrophobia. And the fear of squirrels, incidentally, is called scurophobia. What are you frightened of?
Squirrels.
It was a joke.
It was a reasonably expensive one. Joe.
Yes, what am I frightened of? Psychopaths with axes coming into my bedroom at night and killing me.
You're weird.
Fear itself. And spiders.
Which is called arachnophobia. Yes. A phobia is very different from a fear, in a sense. It is a very specific thing. It has to be irrational. There is no one of those words ending in phobia, a Greek word, like for lions or sharks, because that's a rational fear. And your fear of psychopaths wouldn't be a phobia, because again, it's perfectly rational. But to be afraid of moths, for example, is a phobia, because they cannot possibly threaten you.
Have you seen my jumpers? No. What about fear of flying, which is partly rational, partly irrational, isn't it?
Fear of crashing, now that makes sense, but flying's a good idea.
When I was a psychiatric nurse, we did treat someone who had sperm phobia, right? And the way that they treated it was making them get in a bath full of sperm. And the way they got the sperm was to get loads of medical students masturbating furiously over a long weekend. God, how we laughed.
Is this absolutely true?
That is absolutely true.
Sure. Yeah, yes, I've seen it on the internet.
Thank you. Yes, we had the picture in our head and then we wanted it to stay there.
And did it work?
It worked very well for me, thank you.
So I have to get in a bath full of spiders.
You can do it two ways. You can do graded desensitisation, where you're gradually exposed to spiders, or you can do something called flooding, where you just get chucked in with
This
them.
is cognitive therapy, isn't it?
Well, it's more sort of behavioural therapy, really, because it's cheap.
Yeah.
I think I'll settle with just screaming like a girl and running around the house, if that's all right.
Here are some pictures for us, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. 4 famous brain boxes. Which is the odd one out? We have, reading left to right, Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes, of course, Niels Bohr, Nobel Prize-winning physicist, Dmitri Shostakovich, Russian composer, and another Nobel Prize winner, Albert Camus, the novelist. Who's the odd one out? Yes. Joe.
There's only one with glasses on.
Camus is the only one smoking.
No, there's 2 smoking. Is he the only one that played in goal for Algeria?
Ah, no, you're in the right area. Not the only one by any means. He was the only one who played for the University of Algiers.
Did Shostakovich play in goal for Algeria as well?
No, he didn't. We forget Algeria. They were all first-team goalkeepers. 3 of them were.
Oh.
Conan Doyle was the only one who believed in fairies.
He also played in goal for Portsmouth.
Did he?
For
Did
Pompey.
he?
Yes, he did.
Yes.
He was a proper goalkeeper.
And he would his stance.
Niels
like
Bohr
that.
played in the University of Copenhagen first team.
Presumably when the goal went in...
Albert Camus, as you rightly said, was goalkeeper as well.
He was the
for the
national
University of Algiers, national.
Could that just be acknowledged that I got
We
that?
were giving you 5 points for raising
Shostakovich was a centre forward.
No, he wasn't.
Banged in 40 a season with Spartak Moscow.
No, he didn't. He was an official.
A
He was a
referee.
qualified referee. There he is,
There he is.
imposed onto the body of...
Tunes going round in his head, round and round
of
in his head.
Pierluigi Collina, I think.
Who knows a Shostakovich tune? Bill, I bet you do.
I could give you one of his goalkeeping moves. But,
Even though he was a referee.
yeah, oh, sorry.
Yes. That's all right. Just keep up. What do you get if you cross a camel with a leopard?
Yes. A fireside rug you can have a good hump on. Sorry.
You get sacked from the zoo.
You might.
I know something about leopards, which is they don't mind rotten meat. They catch something and they'll drag it up a tree and they'll leave it there for days.
Yes, they do, don't they?
And they don't mind eating it if it's all covered in maggots, whereas cheetahs only fresh. So a cheetah will catch something and then the leopard will go over and nick it off it and then drag it up a tree and not even bother with it.
But eating rotten meat is terrible. It gives you spots. Oi! Now.
Do you know?
Now then.
Why can't they mate?
Well, they're different species.
Yeah, but...
That is sort of almost a definition of what a species is. We can't mate with gorilla, even though we are very closely related. But
You mean even
these
if they
two-
had intercourse?
Well, I mean, you could literally
the
stick your
tiny-
thingy up the whatnot and...
The tiny leopard sperm could not penetrate the camel
It
egg.
could certainly, but it couldn't fertilise it. There is an animal that used to be called a camelopard, And it was believed by the ancients, by a man that you love personally with a great passion, called Pliny the Elder. Yes, and Pliny the Elder was one of the first to write about this animal. The Romans knew this animal. And they believed that many of the stranger species might be the result of two other species mating. There were such things as griffins and centaurs. So it was assumed that this animal was the offspring of a camel and a leopard. Now, have a look at the camel, and then look at the spottiness of the leopard. What would be spotty with eyelashes and funny lips?
Esther Ranson.
Very good. Come on, anyone in the audience have a thought? Giraffe! You see?
Oh, you flash.
Yes.
Is that a giraffe display team? It's like they
It is.
turned up for a fete.
They're marching.
Well, the weird thing is you do see giraffes eating off the ground, don't you? I mean,
Well, they
it's not
bend
as
down
if-
for a drink, but it's terribly hard for them.
It is. Well, they have enormous hearts. You know, they have twice the blood pressure we do to get the blood going up. 16 gallons of blood a minute is pumped through them. 170 beats a minute on these huge hearts with thick, thick walls.
And they don't appreciate it, do they?
No. What does the moon smell like? Yes, Joe.
Does it smell of Buzz Aldrin's underpants?
It might.
Did he crap himself there and bury some?
Well, one of them obviously did, didn't they? Wouldn't
Crap
you?
himself there and buried some.
I did that as a child. I pooed in my pants and buried them in the garden. But when I went back to check on them a few weeks later,
They'd gone.
We could have sold them. People advertise for dirty underpants in the backs of magazines.
Not in the Spectator, they don't. All I can say.
What's the moon smell of? Cheese.
Oh, Joe, you are sweet. Yes.
I thought that was hanging over us.
It was
like
hanging over us now. Get some points back if you know how many humans have walked on the moon.
12.
Absolutely. You both said it simultaneously and you both get 5
Difference
points.
is, I guessed.
Well, you still get the points. Anyway, apparently it smells of gunpowder. Lots of moon dust came back in the module back to Earth, and it's that mixture of silicon and iron and magnesium and calcium that marks out Special K, amongst other things, I think, that is also present in moon dust.
What's it taste of?
Wensleydale.
But what does the Queen do after Christmas lunch?
As a That's what everyone else does during the Queen's speech.
Do they?
They go for a walk. They go to church.
No, they go to church in the morning, definitely, St Mary Magdalene in Sandringham. But they've furnished us with remarkable details, I have to say, the royal family.
Does that mean that somebody from the office is going to be tuning in to see how these details were handled?
Yes.
And are likely to be thrilled at the sensitive way in which the Queen's Christmas Day has been described.
So far, that's why I've been wriggling slightly. But just to get it out of the way, the answer is she goes into the saloon and watches herself on television. On Christmas Eve, right, they gather in the White Drawing Room at Sandringham around a 20-foot Christmas tree cut from the Sandringham estate. And I want to add here, at the risk of being booed, that I get my tree from the Sandringham estate. It's decorated by the Queen herself.
What, your tree?
My tree, no.
Did she come round to do it? I bet you send her out in the garden. No, do it out in the garden.
At 5 p.m, the whole family has a cup of Earl Grey, except the Queen, who has her own Indian blend.
Is it Twinings?
I hope so. This is turning into a massive embarrassment all round. They have sandwiches, cakes and scones. At 6 p.m, they open presents. This is Christmas Eve, remember. Why do they open presents on Christmas Eve?
Because they're all f***ing mad.
No, because they're all f***ing German. It's a German tradition. Well, there you are. The Queen gives the signal. They give each other practical presents, it turns out. The Queen is said to have been delighted...
With a gun.
Oh, that's bloody brilliant! No, with a casserole dish And a gift-wrapped washing-up apron.
I think it's one of those ones with tits on it.
After Christmas Eve dinner, the Queen and the other female royals leave the room with the corgis. Prince Philip then serves port... Prince Philip then serves port or brandy to the male members of the royal family.
Oh, for God's sake.
Right, well, that's tradition. It's tradition. If I told you this...
only loincloth.
Exactly. If I told you this about an Aboriginal tribe, you'd say, oh, how interesting. So it's tribal behaviour, that's all. It's interesting, I think. They get stockings on Christmas morning.
Philip gets stockings.
No.
Serving the brandy.
No, this is next morning. They all have at the foot of their bed.
He wears them all night.
The family pulls crackers, but the Queen refuses to wear her paper party hat. And then at 3 p.m, they go to the saloon to watch me on Christmas Day. We love them all and we wish them well at this Christmas time. So tell me, what good did the Great Fire of London do?
Pretender. I'm risking it here, but I don't care. Wiped out the plague.
Oh, dear It was taught in school, so you've got every reason to think it, but it's just simply not true. There's no evidence whatsoever. Apart from anything else, the plague was already over.
Well, yeah, but it wiped out the conditions in which it could have come back.
Not really, because the plague was mostly in the suburbs, not in the city. The city was not the place that was most affected by the plague, but it was the place that was destroyed by the fire. By the time September 1666 happened, which was the fire, there were very few deaths. It had gone down to... It had almost ended. No one quite knows why it ended, but it certainly wasn't the fire.
Did it make it easier for them to knock down a load of places that they had their eye on?
Essentially, that's the point. It gave the chance to Christopher Wren to get some church building done, especially St Paul's, of course.
They had lots of grandiose plans about turning London into a grid or a spiral or that, and then they kind of thought about it for ages and then went, put it back as it was.
Yes.
All squiggly lines and weird corners, please.
Yeah, which we love. It is one of the
Well, yeah, but I think Christopher Wren was a bit depressed about it.
Yeah. Well, the best thing about the Great Fire of London was that it got Wren an opportunity. So this round is all about antelope, or antelopes. A is for antelope and B is for bongo. Apart from the obvious, what is a bongo? Dave?
I'm assuming that, apart from the obvious, assuming that the obvious is some kind of African antelope, then the less obvious answer would be it's a percussive instrument.
Well, now, we assumed that the obvious was a drum, but the answer is yes, it is indeed a type of
But if you introduce the subject as this round is all about antelopes...
You're right. It's a spectacular African forest antelope with a caramel and white striped body, as you see there. Much prized by poachers. There are only 100 reckoned to be left on the planet.
Could I just say there's only 100 people on the planet that understand the works of Jacques Derrida, so do you think they're all bongos?
That is what philosophers call a false syllogism.
Ah.
This programme's gone beyond
Do
me.
you know?
Who's Jacques Derrida, first of all?
Well, you can explain Derrida.
He's a French philosopher, and I don't understand a f***ing word he wrote.
What's a syllogism?
I know. All men have bollocks. All men can talk, therefore all men talk bollocks.
Yes. No.
Well, Antelope is very bad at plastering, isn't it? Look at that. What's that? He's not let the first coat set before the second coat.
Is there such a thing as syllogism?
Oh, dear.
Well, like a cheap version of Play-Doh, you mean?
There's a film called Jism that's just... and I was in... I would say that's just come out, but it's a...
Can I just say something that's very strange? Because there's some German chewing gum called Spunk, and you have to be careful you don't swallow it. But in fact, I actually talked about that chewing gum on Clive James's show with you and Princess Diana. Do you remember? Seriously.
That was a dream.
It wasn't.
So, describe the effects of hero syndrome. What is hero?
Psychological disorder where you put your trousers on before your pants.
It is a psychological disorder. I think that's a very good description of it.
Oh, is it where you think you're a hero? Is that?
Is it anything to do with Hero the person in mythology?
Oh, as in Hero and Leander? No,
Yes.
not that.
Oh, I thought I sounded really intelligent.
You
there.
did!
You think you're a hero, you behave like a hero.
You think, yes, it's worse than that. It's really pretty sick.
Do you make something terrible happen so you
Yes.
can look like a hero?
Exactly that.
So you set a building on fire and then rescue
Especially
everyone?
fire, yes.
Oh,
It's
really?
a real problem, particularly in America, because
Like
in America...
Munchausen's.
Sorry, are we
it's
saying
like
that
a kind of Munchausen's by proxy.
Are we
yes.
saying this is illegal?
Indeed.
I've no idea. I'm sorry.
So keen are they to present themselves as heroes, they will set fire to buildings and then be the one who goes in and...
And would these be just regular people, or would it be someone that's in a profession?
It's firemen.
It's
firemen, yeah.
Because firemen are sort of a hero for a job. It's a weird job when you think about it.
Couldn't it possibly be the other way around, that they know they're arsonists, but they've got a guilty conscience, so they become firemen as well?
Well, there is an element to that.
Did you hear about that Crime Watch presenter in Brazil who found that the show wasn't exciting enough, so he started killing people?
Yeah, his name was Sousa, and he was supposed to have commissioned, if that's the right word, 5 murders.
And the police got suspicious when his camera crew turned up before it had even been phoned in.
He went on the run, and then he turned himself in. So, yes, in South Carolina in 1993 and 94, they discovered 47 in 1 year had done this.
All by the same guy?
No, 47 different incidents.
47 different arson stroke firemen?
Yeah.
It's a weird thing, though, isn't it? Because it's a very noble thing to want to be, a hero. It's like it's a really nice thing to want to be, but just so sort of a little bit misguided.
I know, it is. There was, not quite related, but there was a Japanese customs officer who was training a sniffer dog and decided to hide quite a large wad of cannabis on a random passenger who didn't know about it, just basically plant it. And the idea was that then the passenger would go through, the dog would sniff and find it. The dog didn't get it, the passenger just walked through and got a free brick of cannabis. Got home and going, what? It's just very strange.
I'll fly with them again.
Usually it's just a pack of cashews.
I only got a wash bag with the other guys.
When Europeans first arrived in New York, what did they call it? Show.
New Amsterdam.
But it's an Elvis Costello song. It must be right.
Yeah, I think either the
Yeah.
Spanish or the French were there first, so it was
Okay.
either New Madrid or New Paris or Nouvelle Cuisine or something like that.
It was the French, and it was New Angoulême. It was Giovanni de Verrazzano who first named it. A Florentine that was working for the French crown, and he absolutely wanted to favour the French king, Francis I, who was originally Francis of Angoulême, is where he came from.
He must have been very pleased when he got there that he could buy a stick of rock to take out.
It's got New Angoulême all the way through it.
The weird thing about him, Verrazzano, there's loads of things in New York named after him, and every single sign has his name misspelled. It's supposed to be double Z, and nobody quite knows whether they didn't have enough Zs in the sign-making department.
Well, they've misspelt Parkway and Bridge as well, so they're obviously not very good.
OK, so here's a fact about New York, which is quite interesting. Gotham. I think I know the history of Gotham, because it's a small village outside Nottingham, where local idiots would live. And someone wrote this book called The Merry Men of Gotham. So then, about 100 years later, there's a writer in New York, and he compares New York. He said, they're all mad here. It's like Gotham City here.
Ah, OK.
They're all idiots.
I didn't know that. Do you know why it's called Manhattan?
Is that a local Amerindian name?
Yeah, it's a native Lenape Americans. It's actually quite a nice story. So, 1609, Henry Hudson met a group of native Lenape Americans, and they were fishing, and he offered them alcohol for the very first time. And there was a warrior who swallowed the whole lot to test it and passed out, and everybody thought this was marvellous. And he then brought more alcohol, and they ended up getting fantastically drunk together. And the native Lenape word, Manhaktanenk, means the place we all got drunk.
I think the story is that also it was one of those places that was sold for a few beads. And so a few beads were handed over and the Indians took those. But they had the last off because they weren't even from that local area.
They weren't from that area.
They didn't even own the place
They
in the
didn't
first
own it
place.
at all. They just took the beads and said, thanks, OK, good luck with that. Here is something that was fantastically new in New York in 1909 at Coney Island, which is a glorious place to hang out. They ought to bring this back because it's a really fantastic thing. This is one stretch of track running multiple trains, and if the two meet while travelling in opposite directions, so the passengers are in the lower part, you can just see it goes up over the top. think you can just see the arms of some of the passengers, and then it carries on.
I'm sorry, but that's like a very well-engineered train crash.
Yeah. I should have that on the Northern Line. That would be fantastic.
What's the best thing to do in a falling lift?
Well, strictly speaking, I don't know, but I'd like to say that I once interviewed a man who had been in a falling lift, and we were investigating the theory, which I know I'll lose points for if I say it out loud, that by jumping up just before it hits the ground, you can sort of say... We were investigating the theory.
It's a very unfair
he was sort of very deadpan about it, and he had survived this experience, and he sort of said that maybe jumping up may have helped. But
what about making everyone else in the lift lie down so that when you splat on the ground, you're sort of cushioned by that?
This is it. This is more or less what Clive was saying about the thing. It is basically lie on a fat person as you're going down.
No wonder everyone smiles when I get in a lift.
When you get in, you never lie down. It's a long journey.
Which I often do.
Sometimes they give the rather alarming device and bend your knees slightly just so that when you hit the ground, your thigh bones don't go up through your abdomen. But that's pretty unpleasant.
Has this ever happened?
Well, yes and
the
no.
rope snaps and you say, would you mind lying down if I could lie on top?
You've only got a couple of seconds to think about it.
To the ground. First of all, it is a very improbable scenario because multiple cables support every lift, each cable capable of holding the entire lift.
There's no rope, then.
If they were all to go, they have emergency brakes on them, and they have had since, you know, the 1850s and 60s.
Don't you think they should tell people that write thrillers about that?
Yeah, they don't have strange little vents that you can climb up through. Yeah.
But what is it when there are people who are frightened of being in lifts? What are they actually frightened of? Are they frightened of this happening?
Or getting stuck, a kind of claustrophobia mixed with that. In a skyscraper, the lift can achieve speeds of up to 120 miles an hour by the time it hits the bottom. But the problem with jumping is it might take 5 miles per hour off this 120 if you did it. You'd have to time it perfectly. Plus, lifts bounce because there are springs at the bottom. So you'd be in real trouble. You'd bang your head and everything. So, yeah, basically just get the impact cushioned. What kind of condition that astronauts suffer from is measured by the Garn scale. That's G-A-R-N.
Garn is what Steptoe used to say a lot.
Yes, indeed. Eliza Doolittle says Garn as well, doesn't she? Yeah, it's named after Senator Garn, who was a senator, who became an astronaut. And he suffered very particular from what most astronauts suffer from.
Depression?
No, seasickness, or at least travel sickness. It's really, really bad up there, apparently. There's a lot of vomiting, which is not nice in weightlessness. So you take the pill.
Around the cabin.
Exactly. In fact...
They can't do that, but they've got a helmet on. It has to be...
Yeah. 47% of all the medication used by the shuttle astronauts was seasickness tablets. The sickest was Jake Garn in '85, and so after him they used the Garn scale. A score of 1 Garn means you are completely incapacitated by sickness up there.
It's the right word, because it sounds like someone chucking up a bit, doesn't it?
It does. Do you know what causes seasickness, for example?
Is it going up and down on the sea?
Yes. That's the condition in which it happens.
Oh, you mean physically?
Yeah, why does it make one sick?
Sometimes I've had felt unwell on a ship just from the throbbing of the engines. Not even the boat's not even moving about much.
Yes,
there's some sensation that's constant movement that starts to make things come up.
That sight of that would be...
It's a disconnect between the visual information and the sort of balance of information, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
I'm at half a Garn at the moment.
Oh, you're just looking at that. Well, it is.
Why don't birds get it when they're bobbing about on the surface? Why, they never seem to be throwing
How do you know they don't?
Well, yeah, that's true. Or, of course, maybe they just sort of evolved not to. But the bad things to do are going below deck for extended time periods, reading a book, looking at a compass, doing detailed work, or staring at one point. It's helpful to stay in the fresh air, drink plenty of water, avoid fatty and spicy foods. They say that for everything.
You can't move for advice now. You turn on 5 Live and someone's always telling you, well, they've got an expert in because it's sunny today. What do you think we should do? Well, you want to watch out because you can get sunburn, so maybe apply cream or wear a hat. You could be seriously saying this on the radio? What are you doing?
Or do avoid fatty and spicy foods. Alan, what's the difference between an ostrich and a lion?
Why the stars? What's going on with the stars? Is that a clue?
Well, it's a kind of clue to this rather
an ostrich
weird story.
Is a flightless bird with a very long neck, runs about 40 miles an hour, lays big eggs.
Correct.
And is edible, quite a delicacy. Farmed.
Yes.
A lion, king of the jungle, big cat, kill you with a single blow. There are many differences. Is there any particular difference you're thinking of, Sal?
One of the most famous African explorers was the Scotsman...
David Livingstone.
David Livingstone, thank you, Phil. And he wrote that I can distinguish between them with certainty, this is by sound, only by knowing that the ostrich roars by day and the lion roars by night. He described the idea that lions have an impressive roar as mere majestic twaddle and said that they sounded identical to ostriches. So, let's demonstrate that, all right? This is the sound of a lion. Yeah. And this is the sound of an ostrich. Yes, Phil.
David Livingstone was a hard-working Scot. He was working in the mines. His ears were damaged. He couldn't be blamed for this.
Don't you feel that actually Stanley was rather lucky that when he said Dr. Livingstone, I presume, he wasn't shot because he was mistaken for a leopard or something?
If Siegfried and Roy had worked with ostriches instead of big cats, they'd probably still be working today.
That's a very good thought.
Although, Johnny Cash was attacked by an ostrich. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Yes.
In
very
Africa?
ferociously, yeah.
Really?
Never quite recovered.
Yeah. They can kick you. I saw one kick someone in the goalies on the telly the other day.
Yes, I saw that as well. Yes, I did.
He really caught him treat, didn't he?
So we get points just for being interesting.
That's it?
Yeah.
Yep. You know that in some countries, linoleum is a form of currency.
Now, that's interesting. Is it true, however?
You said it was interesting, right?
What is 3 times more dangerous than war?
3 wars.
Is it doing a Yui on the A40?
This is according to the United Nations.
It's probably something really inane, like cycling, trampolining.
It's work. More likely to die at work than you are at war.
Does that include soldiers?
What if you work in a shoe shop near a war?
You always guarantee you will find some cunning way to make me not know anything. And I don't know what the statistics are for people who work in shoe shops near wars.
How many times have they actually had a war in a shopping centre? It's very rare that first world countries get invaded, but if they did, you could have a shootout in a multiplex, couldn't you?
If you lived in South London, you'd find a lot of wars in shopping centres.
I've been arrested in a shopping centre.
Have you? Tell us why.
For an act of war?
I knocked a security guard's hat off.
Oh, a very Bertie Wooster thing to do.
Yeah. I didn't even do it on purpose. I was taking my jumper off. I was absolutely arsehole as well. And you're very much hearing my side of the story. I called it actually rather a story of defence.
I read a thing once that said 1/3 of all accidents at work go unreported. How do they know?
Lumberjacks have the most dangerous job in America, it appears. 122 deaths per 100,000 employed.
So that song's entirely wrong, is it?
Yes. Exactly.
How could you die doing that? Just trees falling on you?
You're saying trees falling on you like that's a bit of a pansy way to go. That's a legitimate way to die.
It's just the only real sort of peril, isn't it?
There's a lot of chainsaws.
But also, you're not very well protected in panties and a bra, are you?
And also, if you're a lumberjack, you're supposed to be good at it. Yeah. You're not supposed to chop down trees and go, oh, it's the other side, isn't it?
Well, now, yes, according to the United Nations, more than 2 million people die from work-related accidents, as opposed to 650,000 people a year who die in war. When was time immemorial?
The Simpsons.
The time before the Simpsons started.
Yes, I suppose that we can.
I don't really understand what time immemorial means.
What it means is if you say, for example, if you can prove in a court of law, say, that you've been grazing your sheep on a piece of common land since time immemorial, that means that you don't have to re-justify your right to do it. That it's a practice that is established and it's been done since time immemorial.
Does it literally mean forever?
Well, no, it doesn't. It actually specifically originally meant the 6th of July, 1189.
There must have been a lot of excitement in the run-up to that. Time immemorial tomorrow. So at last we can get things sorted, because whatever's happening tomorrow, we stick to.
It was the day of the coronation of a particular sovereign in our country.
Richard the First.
You read history, and that's damn good. It shows that wasn't a wasted education. Was indeed Richard I who was crowned in 1189. And for some reason, it was decided then that the first Statute of Westminster, which was a few years after his reign, it defined his reign as the limit of legal memory.
Did they have to raise such an army just to catch those 2 seagulls? There they are! After them, men! They've been flying since time immemorial! The one on the right singing, I can't believe we're doing all this for those 2 poxy seagulls.
Do you think the French, when they saw that lot coming towards them, thought, oh, my God, it's the Red Cross people. Try and not meet their eye. Try and not meet their eye. Sorry, mate, I've got to go. I can't stop.
Which is the largest lake in Canada?
Width or depth?
Not depth. Not
Can
depth.
I attempt an answer at this?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. We were predicting that one. Yeah, who cares?
There are so many lakes in Canada, more than 1 million in Manitoba alone.
Yes.
And, you can buy a lake and have it named after you. It's because the water doesn't drain away. There's no water table.
You can, but one's really, really big. It's bigger than Albania. It's bigger
Is it one
than
of the
Belgium.
Great Lakes technically Canadian? Are they all?
No, you've avoided our little trap there, actually, which Joe didn't by saying who cares. If you'd said one of the Great Lakes, it would have been a big noise because this lake has to be entirely in Canada.
What's the difference between largest and biggest?
Well, in other languages, largest mean widest, I suppose, and biggest being just greatest in size. But largest we now mean to mean biggest. It originally meant wide. Large is wide in French, isn't it?
Right. Thanks.
I mean, we are very lucky because we have both Latin and the Romance languages and the Anglo-Saxon languages to draw on, so we can say big and large.
Yeah.
Say little and small.
Little and large.
Little and large, indeed. Funny enough, when you said the deepest lake, the deepest lake is Lake Manitou. And Lake Manitou is a weird lake because it's also got the largest lake island in the world in it. And that island has got a lake in it, which is the largest lake in an island that's in a lake in the world.
This just goes on to infinity.
It does, doesn't it? No, the answer is the Great Bear Lake. None of the 5 Great Lakes is entirely in Canada, you see. What was the problem with the first ever contact lenses? Joe Brand.
Were they made of hydrochloric acid?
That would have been a serious problem.
I presume they were massive and heavy and awkward and difficult.
They were very awkward, massive and difficult. I'll give you 20 years either way to say what year they first appeared.
1920.
Oh, that's weird.
Whoa! Scary. No, it's not that. 1880, actually. It was in Germany, where they grind lenses extremely well. And there was one pioneer called August Müller, who could only wear them for half an hour, and then only after he had used cocaine on his eyes to numb them, because they were very, very potent.
He got excuse.
Yeah.
Oh, my eyes, they're so...
Meine Augen.
Oh, my eyesight is so irritable and keen.
Are talking nonsense. They used to saw off the bottom of test tubes and then grind them smooth and put them in. They were used not for vision correction originally, they were concealing eye damage and things like that to protect sensitive eyes. And then
Was the eye damage caused by the contact lens?
Well, you'd think. But then they got more sophisticated with it. By the 1920s and 30s in America, they were quite popular, but only with incredibly rich people.
That's quite a big one, though.
That is. In the 20s and 30s, they cost more than a car, one set. So it's only very rich daddies who would let, because their daughters didn't want to wear glasses. And if you watch Hollywood movies of the 30s and 40s, you will see that no actress wears glasses except an actress who is playing a part that is basically a librarian, a dowd, a frump. I'm not looking at you when I'm saying that. Whoa! Why, Miss Quimby, you're beautiful. Now, according to the feminist novelist and journalist Dame Rebecca West, the main difference between men and women is that men are lunatics and women are idiots. Joe, what would you say is, in fact, the main difference between men and women?
Is it that men are really great and women are really shit?
Oh, no, Joe, how is that?
Sorry, that's the wrong way round. I think it's that men are rubbish at multitasking and women are very good at it. What it's about, though, I think, is the fact that if you ask a man to do something, he does it so horrendously thoroughly that he can't do anything else at the same time. This is my husband the other week. Can you hoover the front room while I'm at the shops, right? And I came back, all the furniture was out in the garden. He's on his hands and knees with a hoover, using an attachment I've never even seen before. And it just leads me to think that men are probably actually much better at housework than women.
Yeah.
Because women are sluts and people don't realise that we are. No, we are. I've got a pilot ready for a TV show which is actually about the truth of women's domestic capabilities, and it's called F*** It, That'll Do.
It's a very good answer indeed.
The actual thing as well is that, in fact, every woman in the world has got bird flu, but we don't give a shit because we just get on with our lives. And it's only because a few men have caught it lately that people are going mad about it. Isn't it like, oh, I've got bubonic plague, but I've still got to do the hoovering. Do you know what I mean?
This women's greater tolerance of pain thing is because, obviously, of childbirth, and frankly, it's completely untested because we could be brilliant at it.
Prepared to do an experiment on you.
I've got very disappointing news for you, Tara, which is that women have twice as many pain receptors on their skin.
Thus making them more...
Supposedly, they are more sensitive to pain than men.
There was an experiment once run by the kind of people who run fun experiments like this, to test this notion of whether women can endure pain or not, by the simple expedient of wiring a man and a woman up and running a current through them until one of them pressed that button to stop it. And the women went for the... much faster than the men did. It turns out that men could endure pain twice as long as women did.
But then maybe they're only getting half as much pain, as I say, because women have 2.5 times more pain receptors. But do you know what the originating and defining difference is?
Presumably it's a chromosome.
It's the chromosomes.
Yeah.
And do you know how they're arranged?
There's X and Y. And Y is useless. And we have a Y, and you have 2 X's, which is why women are twice as varied in personality and physique than men are, which is why men are broadly all borderline autistic and are easily unified behind one thing. Oh, did you watch the match? And the entire woman goes, yes, I did, actually watch that, yeah. It doesn't, however, mean that women within themselves are fantastically varied. It just means that one woman is more different from the next woman.
Is that why women are congenitally unable to explain the offside rule?
Essentially, yes.
Is that sort of subsection?
Since they changed it, quite a lot of men have struggled.
I think I recognise some of those spells.
Yes, fundamentally, the difference is Y chromosomes. Sociologically, who can say? Now, what did Harry Houdini hide behind the mirror?
Ooh. We know he was killed by somebody punching him in the stomach.
Boy, wasn't it?
Doing one of his
Yeah.
usual tricks, but he wasn't ready for it.
He hit one of those.
You are right! Yes! Well done. Elephant in the room. Very good indeed.
So how did he hide an elephant behind a mirror?
It was his greatest stage illusion. He was said to be not a very good magician, partly because his personality was very tiresome and he just didn't have any panache on stage.
I can't think of any magicians like that today.
Oh, no. He was obviously a great escapologist, but he brought this elephant called Jenny onto stage and instantly she disappeared in front of the audience, and it was a remarkable trick. No one knew how he did it, and he didn't reveal the secret. But having said that...
the elephant knew.
The elephant, apparently...
Never forgot. Never forgot.
Actually, Houdini is quoted as saying even the elephant does not know how it is done.
Yeah.
Essentially, it involved a mirror folding back that revealed an identically done box in the flies of the thing, so it reflected back and made it look as if you were looking at the empty crate.
All done with mirrors.
All done with mirrors, exactly. And it was impressive for those who sat in the right place.
The best things he did, Houdini, were going around the place exposing charlatans and frauds. That's what he was really good at.
Yeah, absolutely right.
He knew when people were tricking people out of money and conning people.
Well, like all magicians, obviously, you only have to look at someone who claims to be a spiritualist or a mind reader, and you know they're just using magic. I mean, it's what Darren Brown does, it's what James Randi does in America. So, who did Harry Houdini come in combative relations to? Because there was a great man of the age who, rather tragically, did believe in spiritualism and mediums and the dead people being able to talk.
Was it?
It was a Briton.
Wasn't Conan Doyle or
It
somebody?
was Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, who sadly
He believed in
devoted the
fairies
last
or-
20 or 30 years of his life to believing in fairies and spiritualism and things, and Houdini was foursquare against it. But it was a period when a lot of people did sort of believe in this kind of phlogiston.
There's a
and
great story about
ectoplasm.
Conan Doyle, actually. Just for a joke one day, he wrote a note saying, "We are discovered, flee immediately," and he sent it to 5 of his friends to see what they would do, and one of them disappeared. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And he had no idea why, but they never saw him again.
So Houdini, yes, as you were saying, he was punched in the stomach by a student whose name was J. Gordon Whitehead. Apparently he wasn't ready, because he'd claimed he could be punched at any time by anyone and he could take that punch. But this guy just tapped him on the shoulder and went like that before he could sense his muscles. Supposedly, that's what ruptured something and caused peritonitis, though it's now believed that he might actually have had appendicitis already. So it merely just exacerbated it.
Didn't make the student feel any better, though, did it? Yeah, 'cause it's...
But there's been a recent demand to have his body exhumed, and it may even be so.
You never get it out. Never get it out of the coffin.
Hey, very good.
It won't be in there.
But they want to test it for poison, because there are those who believe that spiritualists poisoned him because he was giving them such a bad name. But I think that's...
Can you test bones if you've been poisoned?
Oh, you can test bodies for poison, because the hair, which never goes away, that retains a lot of poison.
That's what you think.
Very good. Houdini was pretty remarkable, though. He could pick up pins with his eyelashes. Eyelashes still attached to his eyes.
do that.
Yeah, can you? Well, there you are. You're pretty extraordinary. You can also undo
Not
knots.
much of a stage act, though, is it?
No, but it was a technique he used for his escapology, that's the point.
Oh, I see.
When he was naked and he was bound and he was in a cell, he probably managed to get to the cell beforehand and leave pins almost invisibly there that he could then pick up, manoeuvre down to his mouth, and then use... He could undo knots and thread a needle with his toes.
Penis.
Yeah, with his feet, exactly.
No, penis.
Oh, with his penis. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I misread. No, it is actually toes, funnily enough. You're on this occasion not right, Alan. I don't know how that could be. Anyway, Houdini hid an elephant in the hippodrome and never told anybody where it put it. What is the similarity between herring and teenage boys?
They're both a delicacy in Norway.
Like that.
Emissions?
Emissions?
Spots?
Yes, emissions, but not emissions...
Is it farting?
Yes.
Is it?
They both communicate by farting, essentially. I mean, obviously, teenage boys grunt as well.
That's what we used to call farts when I was a boy.
What, herrings?
Herrings?
No, grunts. Grunts.
Yes, herrings are the only fish that secrete bubbles from their anus, and it makes an extraordinary noise called fast repetitive tick. FRT is a sort of joke on the part of marine biologists, I guess.
They're a barrel of laughs, then.
How they laugh.
They do like to joke.
They do, don't they? Absolutely. It's probably not gas from digestion, it's probably from their buoyancy sac.
Yes, in that they do differ from teenage boys who, to the best of my recollection, we didn't have a buoyancy sac.
One of the first times I've heard of an organ in the animal kingdom where I thought I'd love one of them.
Well, it's pretty just in conversation, just at a party. Oh, really? I'm finding this dull. Just at the end of your party, your wife presumably will be going, come down, we're going, come down. I'll get the pronged fork. I'll get
And do they really communicate? Or is it just something they do?
Supposedly they do communicate, possibly warning the shoal of danger and in which direction to twist and turn. Yeah.
But supposing their sack is empty and they've got something important to say.
Has your sack ever been empty when you've had something important to say?
My sack's always half full. I had wind when I met the Queen.
What, did you release it?
I had to, and unfortunately I shat myself.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. So...
Well, she'd been there herself.
Had she?
She just looked, gave me that look, moved swiftly on.
You're in the line-up after a show, you're at the palace.
Yes, raw variety.
The curtains come in, all the artistes, Bobby Davro's one side of you, and she's shaking people's hands. You, meanwhile, you've got a bubbling going on, or...?
Well, it was just a little smidge, as I thought, and I tried to get rid of it by internal squeezing. As can be done, and...
Are the muscles a little lax down there at the moment?
No, I had this smidge of wind, and tried to get rid of it, and it wasn't going to go. So I thought, well, I'll discreetly let it go. And unfortunately, on that occasion, I shat myself. It was only a little capsule affair.
Did you tell her?
No, you know, you can't speak unless you're spoken to.
And so she didn't ask if you chat yourself?
No, she moved on to Frankie Dettori.
What's the biggest news item ever?
Has it got anything to do with the Kardashians?
I'm not even really sure who they are, so no.
When was the golden era of the newspapers? When was, like, the biggest circulation? Would it be Titanic?
So it's not an actual news item that we're looking for, so it's not...
So we're not like the moon landing, which is a very big...
It's not a story. It's the actual news.
Did they do, like, a live broadcast for, like, 36 hours or something?
Is it the size of the headline you're looking for? The size
Yes. In fact, you can help me, because I actually have a copy of what we're looking for, but I can't manage it on my own. So, Alan and Clive, if you could come and help me. What I'm talking about is the largest newspapers ever published. These were... This is called the Universal Yankee Nation. There you go.
Oh, tiny print.
Yes. Yes, you seriously had to have...
I mean, is this helping your presentation to skills?
I don't want to hurt your feelings, but if Stephen was here, his head would be poking over the top.
If I was good, I could have gone underneath, but I didn't want to play limbo with the newspaper.
Why did they design those?
Maybe there was a tax on each page of newsprint.
That's exactly right.
Right.
They were known as blanket sheets or Mammoth newspapers or Leviathan newspapers, and it was the introduction of these cylinder printing presses that made them possible. So it was the fact that it was possible. This particular newspaper was only published for about a year and a half, from 1841 to 1842, but it was called the largest paper in all creation.
Would have been very useful if you're an extremely fat tramp that was sleeping out.
Yes, except it was only one page thick, so it wasn't...
In the summer.
In the sleeping out.
Or if you're two tramps having a liaison.
Yes, but they were designed for sharing. But you said about the duties. It's why we have broadsheets.
There was a tax, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a tax.
I mean, when you tax like that, there'd be people trying to avoid it, though, wouldn't there?
I would imagine,
They would have ways of trying to get around it.
I guess some people would, but I mean, they'd be morally bankrupt is what they'd be.
They'd be their papers from Jersey or somewhere, so it would be just crazy.
If somebody...
Would that work?
So it was a bit like modern fizzy drinks tax. It was to discourage people from buying newspapers because they were so critical of the government. And so that's...
They'll tax them out of existence.
Yeah, for a really long time, 1712 till 1855.
And then when they took off the tax, all the sort of Daily Mails, Daily Mirrors, popular press came in because, relatively poor people could afford to buy the news and find out what's going on.